Welcome to the String Theory of the Unexplained. I'm John Ventry. I'm your host, and our co-host is Fred Saluga. And we're a bunch of liars because we said we were done doing these shows.
There's always another time.
When did we do the last one? We did it with Doc Medich. Yeah, that's a year and a half ago. That was in 17, right? The end of
No.
Yeah, we didn't do it last year. I know we didn't do it last year. It was the September-ish of 17 is when. Yeah. But today we want to talk about some of the anniversaries that coincide with 2020, and then we really want to talk about why there's been no real disclosure. There's a lot in the news, over the past 2 years, really since we did our last show. And I think the UFO community is jumping on it, saying we got disclosure. I think most UFO people are going to say because of the Tic Tac video, the government admitted they funded UFO research, all of that, we got disclosure. I'm sure the radio shows are saying that, but it's not.
It's not going to be.
It's not. So that's what we're going to do today. But like I said, it's been over a year since we did our show. But, we'll see. If we got good material, we'll do some more. We got a lot of hits on these shows, too. A lot of people watch them. We got over 80 episodes now. But what I wanted to start off with, Fred, was every year I write an article for Phenomena magazine and now Out of Limits magazine. I talk about the anniversaries. I used to do this for MUFON Journal. Just some quick hits on what coincides with 2020. I call it the Roaring 20s.
Right.
It's been 100 years since we had our flappers, right? But some of the stuff was, it ends in a zero. So 1950,
right.
70 years ago, you had the Farmington, New Mexico, where there was hundreds of these silver objects in the sky having a dogfight. In May of 1950, you had the McMinnville photos, which people have looked at and said that those are legitimate photos. They haven't been debunked, right? November of 50, Project Magnet, Wilbert Smith and Robert Salbacker. And Salbacker said that we were in possession of a craft and aliens that looked like insects. And there's documents. There's a document on that, right? 1960, you got Project Ozma, where Frank Drake picks up a signal.
Right. And
then it's interesting because they move it to Arecibo, Puerto Rico. I mean, they actually built a telescope there in Arecibo. This one's interesting. Project Environment. We're drafted by the CIA and MJ-12, where anyone who threatens MJ-12 can be assassinated, including presidents, and you had the Kennedy assassination. If it threatens MJ-12, of their ability. Look it up, Project Environment. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. 1960, JFK told an Air Force officer by the name of William Holden that UFOs were real. 1980, you had a bunch of UFO cases down in South America. This one's interesting, too. 1980, December of 80, you had the Cash Landrum case in Texas where they got the radiation poisoning. The same weekend, that same day, they had Bentwaters in UK. The Rendlesham Forest. Both cases took place on the same day. I don't know, some people say,
when you talk about the one down in Texas, a little bit about that. There was two ladies there and the one's grandson. The road actually bubbled.
Yeah. Didn't they remove the road?
They removed the road the next morning. And what was happening, the craft was going over and it was spitting stuff out of it, and they had a bunch of helicopters behind it. They filed against the government. The government said they didn't know what they were talking about. They never got anything, but both of the ladies died from cancer.
Yeah, they never got their medical bills covered on that. No. That one to me is a military project, and that was radiation burns. But the one in the UK with the small craft that hovered, just look at the difference in the technology. Like some people in some of the books, the debunkers say, well, they were both on the same day, and they were coordinated by the government. No, there was a huge difference between what was seen in Texas and then what was seen in Rendlesham Forest. They were two totally, one was light years ahead of the other, where I think Texas was an experimental craft, something we were working on, maybe that was nuclear powered and they got radiation burns on that, is my opinion. In the 1980s, 40 years ago, the missing fetus syndrome started. 1990, you had the Belgium UFO wave, which, there was a lot of witnesses to that one. Let's see.
When you go back to the fetus one,
Yeah.
a lot of people probably don't know what's going on there. Allegedly, again, a lot of women said they were abducted by a UFO and there was something planted in them. They was actually having babies. They would be 3 to 4 months pregnant and then the baby would just vanish.
Yeah.
But the problem is when they would go in to see the doctor would say, no, nothing happened like that. So did the doctors actually know what was going on too that they were seeing?
I don't know.
Well,
Well, another interesting thing, in the 1980s, so 40 years ago, missing persons report went up by 600%. Starting in 1980, all of a sudden now we're having 90,000 people that are never found. I'm not talking about reports, because child custody,
right.
95% of all reports are nothing but a child custody dispute. But I'm talking about people who never show up again. 90,000 a year since 1980. In 2010, you had 2 airports in China in July and September shut down because of UFO incidents. So there's a lot of good stuff here. Yeah, that's about it for the anniversaries. There's a lot of other things that we could say, but so that's the anniversaries of 2020. Now let's talk about why is there no disclosure. And I don't know, I guess it was maybe 5 years ago I wrote this book, The Case for UFOs, which I think is one of the best that chronicles all the evidence, all the cases, and I put one chapter in date order, chronological order. So there's a lot of information on this field. If you remember the MUFON Journal from 2017, with the whole Tic Tac thing, when Tom DeLonge and them, they released the video, they called it announcement. December 16th of 2017, they called it announcement. They didn't call it disclosure.
Right.
And I think that was smart on their part, because it wasn't really, you don't hear the government coming out, you don't hear the president, you don't hear the UN, you don't hear anybody saying aliens are real, right? So that, I think that's telling that they called it announcement and not disclosure. I did a lot of research for this, and I was thinking about, SETI, who searches for incoming signals. 1977, you had the big wow signal, but we've been sending signals out for 60 years.
So
1960, they developed a language for a cosmic communication, cosmic call language. In 1977, the Voyager 1 was the gold plate with a message on it. 2001, the Ukraine was blasting Beethoven out to the stars. NASA blasted the Beatle music out in 2004. Then 2 years ago, in 2018, the METI Institute, this is over in Europe, they sent music to the Lutin star system. Most of the music they send out is classical music because of the, I guess, the quality of the tone. And I don't read music and stuff. But classical music would be, very precise, let's say, higher level. They don't send other types of music out there. And then just last month, you had Donald Trump gets funding and creates the 6th branch of our military with a Space Force. So now it's in place. How long do you think the Space Force has been in place?
since around 9/11.
You say 9/11. I think I'd say since 1980.
Yeah, because you had, if you remember correctly, the day before 9/11, they talked about billions of dollars being missing from the military budget.
Yeah.
I think that's where the money went
Oh.
at that time. I think they were using it till now.
Okay.
So
I think that Space Force has been here since 1980 and Gary McKinnon, to be honest with you, you know?
well, it's very, very, because now they're in Antarctica. So what are they doing in Antarctica?
Yeah, well, it's something was going to be announced 2 years ago when that happened, but, okay, so, you know, it's like the last 2 years, a lot of information has been escalating
Right.
in the UFO field. So we had Harry Reid said in 2007, he was able to get $22 million in funding, which he funneled through Bigelow and paid MUFON for investigations. We didn't know it at the time.
Right,
I mean, we were being funded. But his quote, Harry Reid said, Bigelow is a central figure in this.
Right.
And he has been. All of these things you see, Bigelow's in the middle. Academy to the Stars, that's Bigelow's.
Well, we said that one as far as.
Yeah, we were the first to say that. We did an episode on that. So here's the thing. The Navy admits that the 2004 Nimitz and the 2015 video, and there's another one with the F-18s, are unidentified and not meant for the public. But they don't say they're alien or extraterrestrial, right? These craft defy gravity, there's no heat trail, there's no sonic boom, so what are they, a drone? Is it natural? Is it extraterrestrial? The interesting thing is the pilots don't want to be linked to any sort of extraterrestrial alien theories. Matter of fact, I contacted David Fravor, who was the Nimitz pilot, and to speak at our conference. I thought that would be cool to get him here, and he goes, I don't want to be involved in a UFO conference. So you know, and that's what you see. If you start looking these pilots up, they all say, I don't want to be linked to aliens. Okay, because there's something else going on here, and this is drone technology. I don't believe for 1 minute this is extraterrestrials that we're seeing with this video. But I think that a lot of the UFO people have locked onto this now and are saying, we got it, we got the proof, they're real.
But that's what they want.
That's what they want.
You know, and not only that, right now, I know a lot of people out there, well, it's like, oh, Henry, you know, they got this. They need our information now. So people are actually giving the government information that they never gave them before.
Yeah.
So now they know where the UFOs are, what they're doing and everything else. It's nothing but a sham.
Well, I think a lot of it is psychological as far as head games and intelligence. You know, then you find out this Elizondo guy who is one of the head guys with Academy to the Stars, never headed up the program with the government with this stuff. He said he did. He was part of the program. He never headed it up. He didn't run the program. Linda Moulton Howe sells a piece of metal to the Academy for $35,000. Right? It says it's extraterrestrial. You know, so I say good for Linda. She got $35,000. I doubt that was a piece of a craft, but Academy of the Stars is a publicly traded company. They just spent $35,000 on a piece of metal. I wonder what the share owners think about that, because I don't think it's going to turn into anything. We've discovered 3,000 planets. SETI says we'll discover aliens by the year 2029. So is this a con job for funding? You know, what exactly is this? What do you think, Fred?
I think it's a con job.
I do
myself.
Too. I do too.
SETI's been around for how long now?
I don't know, at least 1960.
And they ain't found nothing.
Yeah.
So
All you had was the big wow.
Yeah.
It said he was probably even before that, you know.
And it's ridiculous you can fund something like that.
Yeah. But, you know, then I saw, when you look at the people who say that there's proof, 2019, last year, this asteroid passed by. It's called, I don't know how you pronounce that, Omona?
Yeah.
Omona asteroid. It's a, you know, cigar-shaped, but it looked a lot like the one from the Star Trek movie. Remember that one? I think that might have even been with the Borg. No, the Borg was a square. But that was from Star Trek, but it looked like, some people, and I'm talking physicists, were saying this could have been a craft that passed by Earth, you know? So then my question is, what about underwater? USOs, right? This is the picture that David Fravor from 04. You see something under the water, and you see the 40-foot craft. So that thing has to be 300 feet, I would think, right? And that's the thing out in space now, flying around. So that's what, it was 40 feet, that's what they filmed. You know, so what about underwater sightings? There's a lot of them, but we don't really talk about that, you know?
You know, a lot of the investigations we did with MUFON, the abductions, a lot of people said they was actually taken underwater.
Oh, after the abduction, taken underwater?
Yeah.
Okay.
They would actually be abducted and then taken underwater, and that's where they would talk to them.
Okay.
Which is interesting.
SETI made this comment regarding this whole thing now that's been going on. You know, even Michio Kaku said the onus now is on the Air Force. We know the videos are real and out there, but the onus is on the Air Force to tell us what it is. Because they haven't said what it is. They only said it's unidentified. But SETI, you know, SETI butts heads with the UFO community because their funding depends on this
Right,
stuff, you know?
right.
So SETI says, it's sad that the UFO crowd has come to this, seemingly giving up on proving their own case and hoping that the feds will do their work for them. That's both an unconvincing argument and a mentally lazy one. And that's, people right now are depending on the president or the government to come out and say aliens are real. But you know, how can you prove it though? I don't blame MUFON and these other groups. You know, SETI says, oh, that's disingenuous, but you can't prove it unless you can get the government to come out and say it, you know? We have videos, we have other things, but none of it ever really amounts to proof.
But they're never going to say it.
Well, that's the whole thing, unless they're forced, you know? So it's been a long history, a lot of possibilities. You got a lot of the, you know, the rock and cave drawings and art and literature, the Ancient Alien Show, the Mahabharata in India talks about flying craft, the Vimana, all of that. I read something last month in a book. They said all of that stuff you see, that's thousands of years old, was planted there at the time by Satan, because this is paranormal. He's been waiting, because he always got his time, and he put those things there in 2,000-3,000 BC, and now they're being discovered. You remember one show we did, I said, if we could ever time travel, we would go back and put a different version of the Dead Sea Scrolls, just to screw everything up. Somebody would do that to say Jesus is not a real, you know, son of God, let's say. But this book I read said that that stuff was planted, and the UFO thing is going to be the great deception, and that's how long he's been waiting, and we're finding these things saying, look, aliens.
Well, they just found that new one where they actually had the pictures of the graves. They said it was, I don't know, many years before Christ.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting idea about planting evidence, you know? But that was one of the things I read. So, you know, we've talked about this in other shows. You know, are they extraterrestrial, ancient aliens, prison Earth? Are they interdimensional? Are they fallen angels and a demonic deception? Are they time travelers? Is it the hollow Earth? There's another species here. You know, have we been here millions of years or just 6,000 years? Or is it psychological that these things are being imagined from trauma, let's say? Is it natural weather patterns, or do we have a secret space program that's been here for maybe 30 or 40,000 years? I mean, 40 years. Or is it a combination of both? But the one thing I can tell you with all of these, and there's books written on every one of them, is that they all can't be true. 90% of what I just told you has to be false. They can't all be true.
But when you say here, humans have been here for millions of years, or 6,000, how many times has the Earth been repopulated we don't even know of? So how do the people repopulate it, and where are they at?
Yeah, well, you know, the 6 becomes 4,500 years if you look at Noah. You got down to 8 people, let's say. You got down to 8. And if the scientists, you know, what they say with a lot of these asteroid strikes and things, I don't know that the whole world was ever destroyed, but maybe 90% of all living creatures were killed. So it never got to 0 and restarted, I don't think, because if it did, then you're telling me evolution has happened again very quickly, and I don't think it does.
But was it evolution?
I don't believe in evolution. You know, I have a lot of doubts about that.
So we was planted.
Or you were planted here. But the question always comes up, who created them? Even if it was ETs, which I don't think it was, that created or changed us, who created the ET? So I think eventually you get to evolution or God, you know? It has to be one of those two, you know? So why no disco? What's holding them back to saying, why isn't Trump coming out saying aliens are real, these videos are real, we got a space force to try to combat them? Why won't they do it? The War of the Worlds, 1938, people panicked, so they know that. Brookings Institute did a study on contact, and they said the religious and scientific communities would fall apart. But the Vatican has observatories in Rome and Arizona, right?
The Lucifer Project.
Yeah, the Lucifer Project. National security, it's all about the technology, because whoever has it is the dominant power. And I think that's
That's
the
one of the
one.
main things.
That's the one.
Right.
It's all about national security. I think it's all about the national security. You know, think about this. The National Security Act was created 6 weeks after Roswell. You know,
Right.
you created the CIA, the Air Force, the Secretary of Defense. You reorganized the 4 branches of the military. Is that all a coincidence that it happened after Roswell?
Right.
I don't know. They can breach our defenses, our nuclear plants at will. You know, did our testing of the atomic bomb alert them? And who really controls our skies? I mean, we're not safe if something can swoop down and grab a person or take a person like a pterodactyl, you know? We're not safe. And, you know, I'm a lifetime NRA member, but if the aliens are real, you're not safe in your house, you know? So they don't want to tell you because you're really not safe. That's the bottom line, you know? Or the military doesn't know. Nick Pope said, to get this quote, "It's a natural weather phenomena that can be controlled like plasma." He says that's the dirty secret about UFOs. It's a natural phenomenon. I don't know about that. I mean, this stuff being picked up on videos and stuff, is it a natural phenomenon? You have the Nazi legacy, right? The 1939 Black Forest crash, the Nazi experiments, Werner von Braun, Project Paperclip, Roswell, MK Ultra led to NASA. That history is all there, and that history is real. You got the supposed Greada Treaty in 1954 with Eisenhower, where we exchanged technology and allowed them to do abductions.
I think that's one of the main reasons right
You
there.
think that's it? Okay.
Yeah.
You got Colonel Corso the day after Roswell with Bill Burns, right? That you know, all the technology we got really came from this. Is all of a sudden a rapid increase in technology? Is it all just a cover story for our military? Like the videos we just saw. That's drone. That's our stuff. That's why they won't say it's alien. You know?
I don't think it's a cover story because you have way back when. I mean, you got battles in the sky over wherever that was. They showed.
Yeah, well, I mean, you got good.
So you actually have pictures.
Even in the 40s and 50s,
Yeah.
can't be our technology.
Yeah. So-
It can't be. But I think Hudson Valley and the Phoenix Lights is ours.
Right,
I really
right.
do. That's in the mid 80s
Yeah.
and the late 90s. You know, 97 for Phoenix Lights. I think those craft were ours. Then you got the Collins Elite, an Operation Orphan that looked at the paranormal. And just to cut away for a second, I tracked down Ray Boucher, who was the guy who gave Nick Redfern the information,
Right.
and he came out about the Collins Elite. But in talking to Ray, he goes, I didn't say anything about the Collins Elite. He said, I met with 2 guys from the Defense Department, physicists working on remote viewing.
Right.
And the remote viewing turned very negative and paranormal, and people were getting injured and sick and quitting the program. He said, I gave that to Nick. Nick then followed up and found somebody else who told him about the Collins Elite, that it had been investigating the paranormal and trying to harness that. But you know, I went through the book that Nick wrote. There's no names of who he spoke to. It's basically, he says that, you know, MK Ultra, you find documentation,
Right.
budget money for remote viewing. That stuff is all there and provable, right? You don't find it on some of this other stuff. So Ray Boucher, he said a lot of things. I had an hour phone call with him. We're going to get him here to speak, and we'll let him tell everybody. But I was glad I finally got him. But it was about the remote viewing, that and MK Ultra. That was all real, you know. But if you look at Nick Redfern, the Collins Elite thing, all that this whole thing is paranormal, has, you know, interdimensional, has nothing to do with space, or it's just creation. You know, we're alone.
No.
It is demonic activity and stuff, and nothing in space.
Well, you know, again, when you start talking about demons, I mean, do demons have to be related to the devil, or could they be just called demons? I mean,
Well, there's a lot of people in
Yeah,
other
yeah.
religions and cultures that call them other stuff,
Right.
and just say, like somebody yesterday on one of our episodes, well, the Colin Elite episode, I put out there again, and she goes, they're not really demons, they're good spirits and evil energies, spirits, energies. She don't use the word demons, but it amounts to the same thing.
Right.
And you find that in Buddhism, Hinduism, all these others, you know, being Christian, I use the Christian terminology,
Right.
but if there's a good and evil out there
Mm.
that has always been here, you see it with the Native American stuff, you know, when we did the
Right,
episode
right.
on their creatures, which are some of the creepiest, but you got Norse mythology,
Yeah.
they're all the same, they all have these same good and bad
Right.
creatures, you know? And that's all there is, but it's not coming from space, it's centered on Earth through dimensions
Right.
that have these other
Yeah.
entities.
Parallel universes. That
Or
can come
something
in and out.
parallel,
Yeah.
something parallel,
Yeah.
you know? So I did a little research, so why has there been no contact? Why haven't they showed up like Independence Day, right? Either the aliens all died, or they never existed, right? They're hibernating, maybe it's a very long flight, they didn't get here yet. They're hiding from us on the other side of the moon, they're not capable of space travel, or they're just as advanced as we are on their planet and they just can't get here, or they're already here and they don't have to tell us.
See, I think that's it there.
You think it's the last one? They're here and
Yeah,
they
they're here.
don't feel the need to tell us, like you don't go outside and tell the squirrel, hey, I'm here, you know?
I think when you really start getting into a little bit of disclosure too, I think like you brought up in the beginning, the missing people, I think it has to do with a lot of that. And, you know, you got cattle mutilation, why? How is the blood all related to this? That's one of the big things there.
I think that we continued the Japanese Unit 731 and Nazi experiments.
Right.
We know that we've done that stuff back in the 40s and 50s.
Right.
I think it still goes on.
Yeah.
And some of that is really us still experimenting on people. You know, we used to give people LSD, we used to give them syphilis. You know, I think that stuff still goes on to an
I don't
extent.
think that
And it
much
may
goes
go
on.
on outside of the country in South America or Southeast Asia, but it's us, you know?
But you got, most of the time, it's like in Paulides' books, you got the same age level. Why would they want people of a certain age?
Mostly females, most
Yeah.
that can have children, you know?
And now the big thing is Native American women.
Okay.
Okay, they're taking, that's the big thing right now they're taking. So
Well, you know
what is-
why? Part of it is you can't investigate an abduction on a reservation.
Right.
That's their police.
Mhm.
You know, that's them. You
Right.
can't go. Our military can't go in there. So that's easy prey. To what extent are they a police force? Are they just
Right.
like cops? Or, you know, they don't have an FBI of Native Americans, I don't think,
No,
you know?
no.
So that, to me, that would be easy prey to do something there. I'll tell you something else that happened. This thing with the pedophile priests and everything,
Yeah.
years ago, in the 90s, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, they were transferring these priests that were preying on the kids to areas next to reservations far away in Alaska where it wouldn't be reported. That's a fact.
Yeah.
That's a fact. They were just moving them away to faraway areas, you know? So I looked up, well, who are the believers in the UFO phenomenon? Education level doesn't play a role. There's a lot of highly educated people in the field that have PhDs, MUFON people that specialize in different type of investigations, right? So education doesn't play. Income level does. The lower the income, the more people believe in UFOs. The biggest reason the people, the UFO crowd, is people who are non-religious. They don't affiliate or go to church regularly or have never done anything in the religious field is the largest group of believers in UFOs. Because the alien and the UFO becomes the alternative to God,
Right.
some superior, you know, creature being, whatever, that is going to help us, you know, this superiority thing. People involved in conspiracy theorists, they definitely believe. But then again, Trump is into that. He don't believe. He said he doesn't believe, right?
Well, you believe everything he says?
Well, no. and the more liberals than conservatives, probably 2 to 1. It's liberals believe in UFOs, conservatives don't. Hey Fred, I wanted to mention this book. Jack Brewer. You ever hear of him?
Yeah, I got the book.
He does the UFO Trail.
Yeah.
He wrote this book, The Greys Have Been Framed. Exploitation in the UFO community, right? But mainly what this is, he's a skeptic,
Right.
okay? I tried looking him up. There's no bio in the back. I looked him up on LinkedIn, Facebook, who is Jack Brewer? But he's very skeptical of the field. So he wrote this. It was really a lot against regressive hypnosis, against MUFON, against the whole field. But to me, this guy is an intelligence guy.
Right.
Because you can't find any information on him. But I did read the book, because I think sometimes you got to read what the skeptics say, so you get the full picture. But here's a couple of the things that this guy said. Let's see. An interview with Colonel John Alexander in 2007, right? He said that since September 11th, the mood has changed with national security, and they're now expressing an interest in mind control, MK Ultra. It's interesting that it's coming back. Okay? I'm telling you, this is the side of it, the MK Ultra CIA thing. That's the side of this whole field that I think has a big influence in it, right?
Yeah.
So he says, individuals acting on behalf of intelligence agencies can be about the least reliable sources of information. Such agencies exist for the sake of executing deception. UFO enthusiasts historically put great value on statements offered by intelligence personnel. Now, they've always been intertwined in our field.
Right.
You know, even high-level people, they have an intelligence background, right? Information provided by the intelligence community must be independently corroborated. So the Collins elite, you know, where are the sources for that? Who were the two guys that actually told Nick Redfern that? I can't find them. You know, I guess he knows who they are. I don't know, right? This overwhelming lack of physical evidence supporting the extraterrestrial hypothesis that I don't think there is currently an alien presence on our planet. I don't think UFOs represent alien spacecraft, and I don't think people are being abducted. Then he goes on to say, alien abduction are manifestations of unhealed emotional trauma. He's totally wrong with that.
Yeah.
That's the psychological thing, and they fall back on that there is no such thing. Then that tells me he's basically a debunker, you know, and that's who he is. He writes that weekly UFO trail, but he never has anything good to say. It's always, you know, the skeptic view, right? He says the UFOs are unverified campfire stories. Exploitation penetrated by hoaxes, questionable authors, spooks, and those who promote them. That we're basically in it to write books and be on television, you know. What would matter would be if one of the pro-alien extremists ever presented actual proof of their claims, which they don't. And therein lies the problem. Where is the proof for all of the stuff in the thousands of books? You know, if you go to the Roswell, the UFO Museum, they have every UFO book, magazine ever written. So where's the proof? We don't know any more about UFOs today than we knew with the Battle of LA, you know? So let's move on to the next topic. Well, Fred, we've taken 2 breaks so far in the first half hour of filming because that camera's battery keeps dying and they were fully charged last night. So we're on battery number 3 on that camera, right there. Sometimes there's things around us that are interdimensional.
And we don't know it.
And we don't know it, and they're sucking, and they have to suck energy. That's ridiculous. That camera keeps dying, you know? But, okay, so we're talking about people that believe the UFO thing. So I looked up what percentage of people believe that the wrestling, the WWE, is real. You know, the fans of WWE think it's real. It's not. It's staged. It's scripted, choreographed, and it's not real. They know who the winner is and certain moves and stuff, you know? They're very good athletes, but it's not real. But it shows how people want to believe or are easily tricked. Now I wonder, you know, with Bruno Sammartino when I was a small kid, I thought that stuff was real. And I think it may have been more real back then, but today it's become just Broadway, you know? This, I think, is very important, and people skim over this. It's funny how UFO people, when you say something that doesn't go along their beliefs, they automatically don't want to hear it. They call you a skeptic. You know, they kind of throw you to the side. So they don't listen to what the skeptics say. This guy was a big skeptic. He said this in 2005, Philip Klass. I think there's a lot to this, right? No, he said this on his deathbed. He said, no matter how long you live, you will never know any more about UFOs than you know today. You will never know any more about what UFOs really are or where they come from. You will never know any more about what the U.S. government really knows about UFOs than you know today. As you lie on your own deathbed, you will be as mystified about UFOs as you are today. And you will remember this curse. That was 15 years ago. I think Philip Klass knew the truth about the phenomenon, that it's interdimensional. I could say, in 2005, you will never know more about ghosts than you know today. The government will never tell you more. The psychologists will never, think about it, the ghost hunters will never tell you more about ghosts than you know today, or you knew back with the what was it, spiritualism, you know, back with Houdini and all of that, because you can't ever catch them. You'll never know more about ghosts than you know today, and you'll never know more about UFOs because they're interdimensional. That's why you can't make that contact, you can't get the craft because they're interdimensional. Unless there's a dimension you come through and you're still solid, I don't know. You know, I think his curse, I think he knew, and that's why he was so bold to say, you're never going to find out. I don't know, Fred, what do you think?
I don't know. I think that...
but you think they're solid and they're real?
I think when they come, they can, say they're from a parallel, you know, the interdimensional, parallel universe, they can actually come into this universe and they become actually real, as we know.
Solid, yeah.
Yeah, it's like Bigfoot.
It's not manifesting energy like a ghost that then dissipates.
Yeah. I mean, like Bigfoot, say he comes over here, he's actually flesh and blood. But he can go back into the portal and go where the hell he's from, and there's nothing being said about it. And I think not only that, you know, like you say about, you know, what the government knows, the government don't want to tell us. As long as we're kept in the dust and the dark, we're going to be talking about it, we're going to be spending money on it.
Well, that's what he said. You're never going to know more than he knew then, or we... What has changed since Roswell? Since 1947, we're 75 years or whatever later, what has changed? We don't know any more about the UFOs. We don't have any more evidence. We don't know anything more about this, you know? It's still no different than a ghost hunter back with Harry Houdini. It's no different, you know? So let's talk about hoaxes and propaganda and all of that. You know, the history of the hoaxes is was Ray Santilli, 1993. He had the Roswell alien autopsy, absolutely proved by Philip Mantle to be a fraud, and it was, he got millions of dollars, this Ray Santilli, you know, because they wanted the footage. 2015, Roswell slide, you remember that? Jaime Maussan, Richard Dolan, Carey, and Schmidt. They made the announcement, and 10 minutes after the announcement, they proved that it was a child, you know, it wasn't alien. This one you should know, Rick Dyer, 2008 and 2012, the Bigfoot body. Right, he faked that he had a Bigfoot on ice. He did it twice and got away. He did it twice and got away with it, you know. You would think after the guy faked the first one, but Jaime Maussan, same way. He's been in the middle of a lot of these, and, you know, Dolan got tricked into that. You know, he right away said, I didn't know that this was
Dolan made something on Facebook today, some kind of disclosure he's into. I didn't get to read it.
Well, I think after that, you got to be careful. So then you got 2014, you got Stephen Greer with the Atacama mummy, right? That was proved to be a, not a fetus, but, you know, small child with a defect is what that was. And he's coming out with a movie now on I think, Close Encounter of the Fourth Kind. He's got a movie coming out. I would be very leery of that movie where he was able to get a lot of funding, but it's going to tell people what they want to hear. But he put this thing out saying that he had an alien baby, right? They had the Peru mummies, right? Jaime Maussan again in the middle of that in Peru. And Steve Mirror was one of the ones that went down there, I think, who spoke at our conference and said that that's not true. Crop circles, a lot of them are not true. The Adamski photos, a lot of them have been disproved. Some of them haven't, though. Face on Mars. I kind of believe the face on Mars. I do. You know, they say it's shadows. I believe that one. Kecksburg, we know we proved it was a spy satellite. It was a U.S. spy satellite launched out of Johnson Island in the South Pacific. That's exactly what Kecksburg was. So how much of this is just CIA manipulation?
All of it.
Almost all.
Yeah.
Almost all of it is
Right.
CIA
Right.
manipulation. It's about intelligence is
Right.
what it's about. And how you can trick people. So I say, don't talk to strangers.
Right.
Tell
Right.
your kids, don't talk to strangers, you know? I put remember 2 years ago before I ran locally, I ran for county commissioner, I put out the wanted poster, it was $30,000
Right,
reward.
right.
Where's the proof? I offered $30,000 for blood, DNA, the hybrids, all of that. Got nothing.
Nope.
Matter of fact, a lot of what I got was pretty ridiculous, you know? So let's look at hybrids and that for a second. Right? You got the X-Men, are we really evolving? We could become godlike, we got all these special... I think we do have abilities from Adam, who was able to communicate telepathically, and was much more intelligent and stronger. I think those latent abilities are in us. I think you can, certain people can move your glasses with their mind.
I think we're born with them, but as we go
Limited.
through life,
You lose
them.
Yeah, you lose them, absolutely. You know, the Prometheus movie was really good. I wanted to see the second movie where they went to the planet and then was going to tell us the truth. Because Prometheus said that they created us. Remember when the guy kind of dissolved in the Niagara Falls and life... that was the beginning of the movie. I wanted to just see what they were going to say about that, but they didn't make it. Project Blue Planet, I have that book, 176 species. You know, this is some of them. You have, remember we did the episode on Are We Evolved Dinosaurs?
Right.
Somebody actually created this and said that's what an evolved dinosaur would look like. You have Giorgio who says everything is alien. Here's some more. Apparently they, you know, to me the Pleiadians and the Syrians, they all look the same. The tall whites, my favorite. You know why? Because they're angels. The tall whites are angels. Look at them glowing. Those are angels that people are seeing, you know. This one here,
I'm on ships though too, John. I mean, so you got angels riding on you.
I would say the Pleiadians and the Syrians, these that they show here, at least in this picture, the tall whites are kind of got an aura about them. They're not just people, you know?
Well, those other ones aren't people either. They're aliens.
Okay, they're not people. All right, you got me. All right, Arcturians.
Yeah.
That's the guy from Johnny Depp's Pirates of the Caribbean. Remember? That's him. This one, Draconians, they look like demons, greys. So you got all these different descriptions of this.
You know,
but where are they?
Getting back to grays. Okay, this is interesting here. So we're talking about the grays that they just found, thousands and thousands of years ago, which were planted. Okay, why haven't they been around? If they were seen back then, why were they just brought in the 60s? I mean, because before the 60s, we didn't have no grays.
Right. 1918, when Aleister Crowley was the first drawing of a gray.
Yeah.
That's a good point. You see them in the rock art. That's a great point, Fred. They're in this rock art and cave paintings from 3,000, 10,000 years ago, but nobody's ever said anything about grays until the last, 40, 50 years, since 1960. You know, but Crowley did conjure one up that was a demon.
Right.
That was definitely a demon, but he was a gray. So you got creation versus evolution, right? Big Bang Theory, 13.8 billion years. Stars, 13 billion years ago. The sun, 4.8 billion years ago. Earth, 4.5 billion years ago. Oceans, 3.8 billion years ago, and they don't know when life started or how, which is a big question. Or you have creation, because you can't have aliens unless you have evolution, right? So if God only created us here, you have day one, earth, water, and light before the stars, okay? Day two, the atmosphere and sky. Day three are plants and fruit and trees. Day four is the sun, the moon, and the stars in the universe. Day four. We were here, Earth was here before the universe. Day five, birds and fish. Day six, land animals and humans. And that's, I think, the battle you got between whether it's evolution or creation. I found this slide really interesting. This is Adam to Joseph. It's about 20 generations. You see how long they lived, right? 900 years, 900, 850. Then it started decreasing because it's incest, basically. You're marrying your sister and you're getting more deformities, and you see the age just decreases. 400 years, 200 years, 175 years, 120 years, 100 years, you know? It makes a lot of sense when you look at if it was creation. You're picking up mutations and genetic deformities because it was all incest from one couple, you know? Or even when you get to know her, it's 8 people, and people are living less and less and less, and they're getting more diseases. Actually made a lot of sense to me, you know? I read John Milton's Paradise Lost, 1667. In the book, he said all the ancient sites were built by angels and fallen angels.
I can believe that.
Wasn't that interesting?
I mean, you look at a lot of them things back then, we couldn't build them today. They were saying the other day, Stonehenge, it would take 150 years to build Stonehenge. Well, what kind of equipment did they have back then?
They didn't have equipment.
No, I mean, they said they had chicken bones.
They had levitation, or if you go back to the previous slide, early humans were actually bigger, stronger, more intelligent. They may have even had telepathic abilities where they can telekinesis, they could move things. I think we've de-evolved, and the whole story's been told backwards.
Right.
They didn't have the equipment 3,000, 4,000 years ago, but they were able to build this because they were smarter than us. It would be almost like you get a spaceship, Planet of the Apes, and they crash, but let's say they all lived, and you have these really intelligent people, engineers and stuff, they would have figured out how to build stuff, you know? I think we're de-evolving. I think the whole story told to us, I think it's backwards.
I agree. I mean, like I say, you go back there, like even before whatever, I mean, you got structures that we can't build today. I mean, and then people didn't have the, you know, to build it. They used chicken bones.
Well, you know what?
No way they used no damn chicken bones.
When I went to Rosslyn Chapel in Scotland, on the one east wall, there's all symbols and musical notes called Goetia, G-O-E-T-I-A. It's like a spell. It's a genie's lamp when you say the words, and that comes up in King Solomon Key. You can control, like he said, you know, like John Milton said, built by angels and fallen angels. But what if there's a spell that you can say that causes them to do that, like a genie's lamp? They have to do what you tell them as long as you say the spell. And maybe that's one of the items that's in the Ark of the Covenant, you know, the chalice. Maybe there's a scroll with the spell of how to control them. Wouldn't that be interesting? You know? But that's my imagination. I put that in my books. So to me, you know, the 8 books I wrote, this whole field, I think it gets down to evolution or creation. Because without evolution, you don't have life in space, right? And I also put in one of my books that God put one planet in each galaxy with life, knowing we would never ever be able to really travel that distance, you know? And he just waits to see how each of those 250 billion galaxies with one planet, you know, what do? Do they all fall from grace? Do they all end up like us? I think that would be cool, you know, and God could do that if he wanted to. But to me, it's always been, you know, intelligent design by God, or aliens, as the fans would say, or evolution. And I'm not an evolution fan. I found this slide, which you're going to like. Like Pinocchio, when you make stuff up, instead of your nose, your hair grows. That's Giorgio through the years. And you see what happened? The longer he's been on Ancient Aliens, his hair got longer. Look, the more stuff he made up, the more his hair grew.
We make up everything.
You know? So there you go, just like Pinocchio. So, Fred, there we are. I say, since we're in the year 2020, 2020 is hindsight, but Fred and I, we're foresight. Because we got it going on. And we may do some more shows. We'll see. Thanks.